I'm going to call the meeting to order at 6:30. I'm happy to recognize Dan Zembreski, member of the public and highway commissioner. I'm going to waive the rules of procedure, but I do have 4 thank yous in its place. And the first is to CC4G, Community Collaborative for Guilford, for letting us use this space in view of all of the chaos, mess, noise, and dust of the construction work at the town office. We were extremely lucky to have our last meeting at the church, this meeting at CC4G, and probably our next meeting is going to be at the CC4G offices too.
Yes.
So thank you to them. I also want to thank the staff at the town office, Peter, Ellie, Penny, Lisa, Peter, Hetzel, anybody who walks in there, for packing up, moving again, sitting in dust, not having toilets, not having running water, moving again, packing up, dust, noise, construction, disassembling furniture, reassembling. A lot of that has fallen on Peter. So they have been heroes in this construction process, and I can't express my thanks enough for everything that they've put up with. And hopefully this will be over in a month?
Oh, yeah, a month.
A month?
Absolutely.
And the worst of it hopefully will be over in the next couple of weeks. So, and my final thanks goes to Zian Zembreski and the road crew for dealing with the monsoon climate that we've got in Guilford. Roads going out, ditches being done and redone. You've got a lot of new cones that you put to good use, I believe, because there were so many ditches, and you guys have just also been real heroes this last month. I can't believe we're gonna have another week of this, but
Yeah,
thank you.
We don't need much more rain.
I know, but thank you so much and your guys, please let them know that we really appreciate that, so. Are there additions to the agenda this evening?
None for me.
Changes to the agenda order?
Yes, there are 2 changes. I got a little excited and put fund transfers on here, and we don't actually need to do that until after taxes are collected, so we'll table that for a couple more months. And then due to details with construction, I was not able to gather the necessary information about the playscape mowing, so that will be tabled until the next meeting.
And that was 2 issues on playscape mowing. One is, should we take a vote on it, whether or not the town is going to assume responsibility for it? And the second one is, how do we take into consideration the added cost of having to assume that responsibility, if we should so decide? So we will table that to the, what is today, the meeting of the 27th. And by then you'll have plenty of time. Thank
Exactly.
you. So did everybody, well, we only have 2 people here to approve the minutes. You weren't here.
Even though you weren't here,
Yeah.
Richard wasn't
Oh,
here.
Richard was
Richard-
here.
No, he
It was
wasn't.
Miranda,
Miranda, you and I.
So
we have
maybe,
to
wait till-
delay those until
yeah.
the next.
yep, so table that. Dan, general update, highway.
Well, we've been trying to mow roadsides. We've been trying to get some roads graded, but that ain't working too well with all this wet weather we've been having.
Hold on 1 second, please. You just asked something real quick.
We're already started.
Thank you.
Peter, have you moved the phone?
We just asked, Dan is not saying anything right now, we just asked people coming in to be quiet. So when you think,
Okay.
so now, Dan, can you speak a little louder so that Richard can hear?
Yeah, where did I get lost here?
Mowing.
Yeah, we're just trying to get roads fixed up, and this weather ain't helping us at all, so getting the culvert set, and we fix the roads up and it washes out fast as we fix them. And I'm not doing nothing until I know this stuff stops, so.
Yeah.
I do have a couple of culverts on the Guilford School Road I gotta do, right at the beginning of the school road. I was gonna try to do them on Wednesdays, but I don't know what the weather's gonna be like, so I may wait and do them first thing next week.
Is that where you
Which-
put the plate
Yeah,
at the
which
beginning?
the road's gonna have to be closed for while we're doing it.
Uh-huh.
So I'm just gonna detour them up, they can come up Bennett Road to go to the office or the school, so.
So the office will be closed on Wednesday.
Yeah.
The school's closed. You're not gonna do it on Tuesday when there's voting, so
No,
I think
no,
people
no.
are,
And if it's gonna be crappy weather, we're not gonna,
yeah,
I'm not gonna try to get it dug up and
okay,
get downpours and electrical storm and, so,
okay. Thank you.
yeah. We've been setting culverts and doing a lot of ditching and about it, that part.
And then we have the Green River Road closure and status to date, which is complicated.
Yes, it's, I got a couple of prices on doing the job. V-Trans for the grant wants 3 prices, plus they want a pre-bid meeting and meet with the contractors. Way I'm looking at it right now, we got school starting in a couple of weeks, and that road's been closed for a month. And I'd like to get it done, get it fixed and get it done so school buses can run. Otherwise, I'm gonna have to tell the buses it's gonna be the end of September before it gets, if we go try to get the grant. And I've had Peter email Mark Pickering through the state this morning to see if we just fixed it ourselves with the
Or
price
do we
that I
might get
got.
reimbursed?
And no, we won't get reimbursed if we just do it by ourselves. We just
But
take it
it's-
out of well, just pull some money out of our retreatment money to fix it, get it done. That's up to the board. Otherwise, you're gonna have to have a special meeting. We gotta get that stuff out, the RFP out and get noticed and get contractors there to do it.
So my understanding is that this is approximately a $70,000, give or take, reconstruction job?
The 2 bids that we have here, one is 44,800 and the other is
Not 70.
40,200.
Okay.
No, it's come in at less than V-Trans predicted so far.
Okay, and so my understanding is we're kind of in between a rock and a hard place.
Yes.
If we follow the state requirements to apply for the grant, we have to follow all the state requirements, which
Yes.
means 3 bidders, pre-bidder meeting.
An RFP written up. We do have this sort of a
We've got the basics.
basic right there, but I mean, it's,
And then the need to get this road repaired, A, for residents and B, for the
for
school.
the school bus.
Which starts in less than 2 weeks, right? Or just about 2 weeks.
Just, about 2 weeks, the end of the month.
And we have a bid that is reasonable by somebody who can start right now.
He was all ready to go this morning until I called him and said, no, no.
And
And we also already have our permit to do the work
We have the permit.
from whom?
from A&R.
A&R.
We received
Oh,
that
that's
this
right,
morning.
yeah, okay, so, and so is the state, Mark Pickering, et cetera, showing any signs of flexibility in managing this, given the exigencies of the contract?
I won't
Or we
know.
just don't know, we might
I
not
don't
know till
I
tomorrow?
did find out the reason why they're being,
They're
the way
following,
they are right
observing
now.
the rules,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, so,
We're still
so,
waiting on the response about whether.
From
they'll-
Martha.
Yes.
and hopefully we'll hear the response tomorrow.
so,
I haven't had time to really sit down and get the stuff organized. I sort of could use some help on doing this, because I've been busy. And,
No,
you know,
really.
I'd really like to have some help getting this done so we can get going.
and what kind of, what do you
Just
need
any,
in terms of help?
and somebody help me do the paperwork. I mean, get it organized, because today I had to pull the guys off, I'm running grader, and I pulled the guys off a job to bring me some material. And I got 2 guys doing culverts, and the other 2 guys cleaning culverts, so, I mean, it's,
So tomorrow the office is closed and we have voting. You're not gonna be at the voting, right, Peter?
No, I'm gonna be in the office.
So you might be able to help Danny tomorrow?
I mean, he and I have been working together this whole time,
Yeah.
so.
we gotta get going on this, because
Do you need more than Peter's help tomorrow? Do you know?
just Peter and I can do it.
Okay.
I mean, just,
So I think the question is, to the select board, do we want to go ahead with Mike Kachuk, who was ready to do this morning, and bear the cost ourselves, or do we want to wait a few days to see how's Mike's flexibility?
He gave us 2 days, otherwise he has to start another project.
Yeah.
And then,
And then we start all over again.
Yeah, then he
And did we lose one of
And
the
then
2
he's-
days today?
we did.
Yeah,
Yes, we did lose one.
So
of
he
the
has
2 days.
1 day to, but so I'm
It's
clear.
all got, like being.
The decision I understand. So it's a decision needs to be made in
Yes,
2
it is,
days.
yeah.
It's not the work that needs to be
I mean,
completed within
this
2
this has
days.
been down for a month now, and it's been
Right,
longer than it should have been. I
right.
was telling Sheila this morning, if it was back in the old days, it would have been done 2 weeks ago, when I had control of things and I could do things. So, it's up to the board to make that decision, because I'm not making the decision anymore.
Okay.
You
I see,
guys,
I
you guys
think I
got to call a
understand.
shot. It's
Yeah.
your shot anyway, so I mean, it's,
Well, I think we need to wait the one more day to get the answer from Mark Pickering and the state.
I mean, honestly, the state's been really strict about their procurement policies across the board. And I mean, I expect the answer's gonna be the same. I mean, it's sat for a month. What's our exigent circumstances? We haven't even had an emergency select board meeting. If it really were an emergency, that's what we should have been working on. So I don't see how we have a basis for exigent circumstances in any reasonable or realistic sense, because it's been sitting so long. Even though it's been an extreme inconvenience for people in that area. So I think that being said, I wouldn't expect different response from the state. So I think our decision is, do we pay for it, or do we wait and go through the entire procurement process? And it seems to me, and Dan, you could correct me, but just from what I'm hearing, it's a written RFP
That's correct, yes.
with at least 3,
yeah.
or 3 people, or
If you
at
can-
least 1 bid and 2 people saying no. I don't have the
That's-
time.
Yep, that is correct.
Along with a pre-construction meeting.
That's absolutely.
So we're talking, you know, if you're gonna need a written RFP to go out, that's gonna be, you're talking 3 weeks to 3 to 4
3 weeks,
weeks
and you guys-
easily. And that's assuming someone has the time, because right now, my understanding is also that construction-wise, everyone's very, very busy and it's hard to get anyone.
I just want to comment that this road closed on July 25th and today's the 13th, so it's been 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks,
Yeah,
not a month.
Well,
So, and we,
seems like a month anyway.
yeah, but it's been 2.5
Yeah.
weeks.
I mean,
Just so that we're not saying that it's, you know, nobody's been done anything. I know you guys have been busy, I know you've been having conversations, I know Mike and Mike Renaud have been having conversations, I know the engineers were down here, I know that you've had, you know, the A&R was here, so it's not like nothing has been done, it's just been getting to a decision point.
It's also not been, we haven't been acting like it's an emergency situation, so I
Right.
think we're hard pressed to have a straight face and tell the state, change your rules for us.
Yeah.
I mean, that's my opinion. You can differ with
Is
me, and
that,
that's fine.
is that the way you understand this? Is it?
What she stated is exactly what Mark said today. The other thing to add to what Gabby said is that Mark said the RFP has to be out for a minimum of 2 weeks. They prefer it to be a month, but it's a minimum of 2 weeks that the RFP has to be out there.
So did he say this a week and a half ago?
No, he said it to Dan and me this morning in 2 different instances, one to me and one to him.
So there are really 2 issues. One is Gabby's point that the state isn't going to look on this as a, in my opinion anyway, that the state's not going to look on this as something we needed to, you know, address it as an emergent thing. The other thing is the school's opening. I mean, I can't see us doing what we had to do all over again
For
with
Green
the
River.
Green River Bridge being shut down to the kids. I mean, to me, that's a lot of money. But if the chances of us getting this paid for are slim, and we're probably a month out, easy.
Well, let's just say
That's conservative.
it's not that. I mean, I think the chances of getting some sort of reimbursement, I don't know if they're good or bad, but it's going to be a monthly time.
So that is a monthly time. We do have the assurance that we have met the minimum requirements
Yes.
in this cost, so that we do qualify for this kind of grant.
That is correct.
And there's a pretty good chance that we'd get it. The question is, between now and September 13th, which is about, let's say, 8 or 10 school days, I don't know, how much are we affected?
Well, the buses are just gonna have to run like they do in mud season, when they stay off the hill, they go, well, before they could go to the covered bridge, turn around and come back. Now they're just gonna have to go to Lines's, pick the kids up and then come back out Lee Road.
Do we know how many kids are out there, or if any kids are
That's to
impacted
be up to the
this year?
school to, I don't know how many kids are over that way.
So I think we need to check that. I think we need to actually develop a timeline here. And if we need to, I think we should call a special meeting tomorrow night or Wednesday and figure out whether we want to accept one of these 2 bids or wait for the state and go through that process. I think we will have a better understanding if we figure out the number of school days that are possibly involved here, the number of students that are involved, and and Mike Chuck's or somebody else's timeline. Are there any other questions that we need to address here?
I mean, I'm 99% sure there are kids involved, and I think the number of kids actually is irrelevant. Personally.
Sorry, Richard, your turn?
What did Gabby say about the number of kids?
I said I think it's irrelevant, the number. I mean, whether it's 1 or 10, I don't think that it matters.
But if it's 0, it matters.
Then check on that, but it also
Yeah.
seems to me that Mike Kachuk is saying he needs to know by tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yes, that's what he told both of us.
So we
That's-
can make a time, if we make a timeline, we lose our other options, so. And I guess the other thing is, it would be helpful when we're trying to make decisions to know what we have in reserves.
We know.
Well, it would be helpful for us to know when.
No, we
when we're
know
making
that.
it.
I mean, we have that information.
And where we would pull the money from potentially, and what the grant reimbursement would be, so we can weigh the risks and balances.
Do we have any sense from the other bid on timeframe?
Renault?
Renault.
They're busy.
Yeah.
You know, Mike Zero was the only one that could get right after it. That's why I told him to go ahead and do it. You know, get ready to do it. So,
If we do get the grant, it's 90% and 10%.
So 36 and $4,000 more or less.
Yes.
Roughly speaking.
Roughly speaking, yes.
And there's nothing we can do temporarily to get
No.
movement through the road.
well, I can open it up, put cars through it. Just make sure it's barricaded and coned off. But I wouldn't want the responsibility for somebody going over the bank.
Yeah, no.
Wrapping
I
that.
just wanted to confirm that with you,
No.
that there was nothing we could
It's a
do.
long ways down the brook.
Yes, it is. We don't want that.
All right, does anybody have a recommendation for how to proceed? I think I've summarized the issues.
I think given the school's coming, that, I mean, happy to shoot a text and see if there's, who I think it is, if their kids are still in school, but, I mean, given that school's coming, I think if there's any kids there, we need to spend the money. If Dan has the money in his budget or in a highway reserve fund.
So Dan and I spoke this afternoon about that topic. The 2 options that he and I spoke about. One was we received this paving grant this year to do the paving on Weatherhead Hollow Road. And so with that, Dan also had his paving budget from last year that rolled over into this year. So there are funds there. That's, so now for not including the grant, he's got $360,000 for resurfacing for the year. The other thing is that there is the highway reserve fund as well, if you want to consider that.
So is there a possibility that you could do $40,000 less of paving and, because you were going to spend that whole amount of money, but this has been a bad year for that.
Yeah. Everybody's busy right now.
Yeah.
We have 2 years for that grant, or a year and a half. We could do the paving next spring. I mean, that's no
Yeah.
biggie. But the way it's looking right now, it is gonna have to be next
Yeah.
spring.
But besides the grant, we had an excess, I want to say off the top of my head, 80,000 or something.
180.
Yeah,
Okay,
180,
180
yeah.
of our funds.
Of our funds,
So we could
correct.
take 40 out of
We can
that
take pull that
to
out.
apply to
Yeah.
this. And in your mind, we're not doing a disservice to the town of Guilford.
No.
We could wait until the spring to.
When you say our funds, you mean highway reserve funds that rolled over from FY '18? Or are expected to roll
No,
over?
I think you're talking about the
That's what I mean.
paving funds. And
Right,
then we
but
got
the paving fund, I thought
180
came out.
plus 180, which is the 360.
Right, but that was, it was earmarked for paving, but that came out of highway reserve fund, didn't
Mm-mm.
it?
No,
It was a rollover,
It's a
180 was
So it was for
rollover.
paving solely.
And then
I'm
we got the
sorry,
grant,
okay.
yeah.
I spoke wrong, okay. Good, thank you for the clarity.
So do I hear a motion to, can we have to do a sole source bid thing, sole vendor?
Not, you don't, because you have two bids sitting right in front of you.
Okay,
And our procurement policy says that
Two
if
or-
two or more, three is preferred. Dan has not been able to get a third. He's called a couple people and not gotten responses. So you are within the
Yeah.
existing town procurement
Right.
policy.
Well, I mean, I personally hate to give up this option of getting this money from the state, but on the side of safety, the kids, you know, the road's been down. I mean, I'll make a motion to have this done right away by MT3, as long as they can still get it done.
is there a second?
Second.
I'm gonna call, because Richard's not here. Richard, all in favor, Richard?
Aye.
Aye. Gabby?
Aye.
Gordon?
Aye.
Sheila, aye. Forgot to say that Veranda's absent tonight, so the motion has passed. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan, for having this. Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
would you like to speak to the issue of Cathi Wilken's 20 years of service?
Yes, there was a request from the trustees of the library to have a select board person attend a little celebration for Cathi on the 15th of August. Am I right about that date?
It's
No,
the
20th
15th,
of August.
Wednesday the 15th?
Let me just look at my calendar. Yes, Wednesday the 15th at 5 o'clock, to have a select board just say some words about Kathy's 20 years of service and how the town and the select board are appreciative of those 20 years.
Thank you. I'm out of town that day.
I am too.
You are?
I work on Wednesday nights.
So, Richard,
Yes, I'm out of
maybe
town.
you I know you're on the board of trustees, but maybe you need to do that on behalf of the select board.
He's out of town too.
Are you out of
I'm
town?
out of town. Yes.
Can we write a letter?
Yep.
Would you like me to go in place of this?
Can we send Peter instead? Are you?
Well, why don't we check on Veranda,
Oh,
and then
no. Peter or Veranda would be great.
why don't we see if Veranda's
Yeah.
available?
Okay, so we will, failing that, Peter and I will talk tomorrow and we'll draft a letter of something. Okay?
I will
Okay, great.
contact,
Yes, that's terrific.
Okay, great, thank you.
I'll reach out to Veranda.
Next item on the agenda is Route 5 culvert problems.
I do not see
John Wilman
John
is not
Wilman
here.
here.
Okay, are we tabling that?
I would say so.
Okay,
Or can Peter speak to it?
I cannot,
Okay.
I was not
No, I was
given
just
any.
wondering if, okay.
Well, I know what John's argument is. He lives in a swamp, or on the borderline of the swamp, and there's a, when you turn on the Tyler Hill Road, excuse me, it's the old slate quarry, and when you turn on Tyler Hill, there's gotta be a culvert there somewheres. What he is saying, what it's doing, it's backing up and flooding out his portion of his land, but it's always been like that ever since I can remember. Of course, with all this rain we've had, you know, the water table's already raised up, so I think what he wants us, I haven't met with him, but just what I've been hearsay, I think he wants us to put a culvert underneath Tyler Hill. And if we do that, then you're gonna have to get a hydraulic study. And I already know what the state's gonna tell you. They're gonna want a box culvert.
Well, and it's no
And
wetland.
it's wetlands, so,
but right now we're not,
right.
there's no
No,
decision
but-
to make, no claim being made or anything
No,
like that.
he
so-
just,
And is there a culvert now? Anywhere?
I don't know, when they redid that road years ago, the only ones that know would be Harvey and Bernie the Rock, but they're no longer with us, so.
And it's a town road?
It's Tyler, our end of Tyler Hill. So.
Thank you. Town holidays and rescheduled. Do you have those dates?
I do have them printed out here. Alright. So I had, sorry about that.
So, Richard, this was a memo that Peter sent to us on July 23rd. Columbus Day, the meeting would have been on Columbus Day, August 8th, and he
October 8th.
October. He recommends moving it to Wednesday, October 10th at 6:30. Veterans Day, 12th November. We could do it, but will we have a quorum? And I think you know the count of how many people said yes.
So far, I have 2 people who have said they will not be there, but I do not have anyone else saying that they will be there.
I told you I would be here.
I thought you were out.
No,
On the 12th?
on the 12th. No, I said yes.
Well,
Yeah, I think
I'll be here, it's not a holiday for me.
No.
okay, so that's fine. Then we'll
So
leave
we're
it as it
okay.
is. Okay.
And moving December 24th meeting to the,
What was that about October?
it's this, the
It's
meeting will,
November.
November 12th, the meeting, so October 10th, November 12th, and December 26th. And
So we're making the changes.
yes, and the meetings will
Okay.
take place at 6:30 on the different date, so we'll post that. Everybody's okay with that? All right,
Yeah, I won't be at the Wednesday meetings. I work Wednesday nights, so.
So the 10th and the 26th, you won't be there?
Correct.
Okay. I mean,
So can
you,
you just tell me those dates again? October 10th,
it's a
November
memo,
26th?
October 10th, November 12th, and December 26th.
I mean,
Okay.
per town policy, you guys can change those dates to whenever. I mean, the policy states that it will fall on the Wednesday following a holiday, but you guys have the option to put it on whatever date is convenient for select board members.
We could also decide we don't need to meet between Christmas and New Year's.
There's that.
Just
Yeah,
saying.
that's a good idea.
But let's leave that for,
Guessing the odds of that are pretty low.
let's save that for another month. Okay, closing out our revolving loan fund.
So I will change those dates then. Please hand those up, please.
Yep. Everybody saw the business of the revolving loan fund. This was in
I
the
read it.
materials folder.
Yep, so I shared with the select board that, so since 1999, Guilford has had the Guilford Housing Rehabilitation Program, also known as the Revolving Loan Fund. That was a grant from the Vermont Community Development Program to help low and moderate income residents in Guilford. It was initially started when Algiers Village got the sewer system to help low-income families connect to the sewer system. It was then allowed to be continued to help low-income families who had an emergency, for example, had a failed septic system and didn't have the money to pay for a septic system. So per the agreement, those funds had to be, the town had to cycle through those funds at least 2 times, meaning they had to lend out 100% of the funds. It could be lent out in different amounts, not all of it necessarily, and then get that money repaid to the town and then lend it out to somebody else. And so the town has done that. Part of the agreement was that if those funds are not used for 3 years or longer, that the town either needs to use them or return them to the state. I was notified that we needed to submit the annual financial report for this fund to the state in July, and had never done that before, and inquired about it, contacted someone in the state, and that's where all this came out from. So the last time these funds were used was in fiscal year 13, so we more than had exceeded our 3-year time period. Technically, there is a little loophole that we could use it, but for the sake of simplicity for both the state as well as town employees, I've recommended to the select board to move to return those funds. If we do return them to the state, it goes into another pool of grant money that the state will then use to help low-income families in a different community within Vermont.
So I'll make a motion to close out the RLF and return the funds to the state.
Thank you.
Second.
Gordon is seconding. All in favor? Richard?
Aye.
Gabby?
Aye.
Gordon?
Aye.
Sheila, aye. Thank you. So, old business is Soveren Solar. And Tammy, I think we could start by having you read the letter that you, just so that it's on the record, that you've written to the select board and the planning commission.
Okay.
And then,
And then go from
and
there.
then, yeah, I think we're pretty clear on where we want to go, but we'll start there, okay?
Thank you. So as you guys know, I'm asking you guys and the Planning Commission to please contact the Public Utility Commission regarding Peter Thorell's request for amendment for the project, 500 kilowatt project. The Public Utility Commission ordered Soveren to apply for a major amendment. A major amendment means you're doing an application from the start. Peter Thorell tried to scare all of us in commenting that on this application by implying you have to know all the criteria of the 30 VSA 248 and requirements of PUC Rule 5.107. It's the Public Utility Commission's job that needs to know all of that. All we have to do is share our comments with them on how we feel about the project. One of the biggest differences between his first application and this
Maybe hold on
amendment.
there, Richard. Richard, are you crinkling paper?
Yep, sorry.
Okay, thank you.
And this amendment application is that this time you have Guilford residents coming to you with our concerns. The location and the design that Soveren used was not in the town's best interest, but in Peter Thorell's. By placing it at the bottom of the field, he only had to have one utility pole added to the 2 poles already installed for the 150 kilowatt project that he had just put in Will Wonus's backyard. He also stretched them out across the field, 23 racks wide, to save money on the underground wiring. Peter Thorell could have installed this 500 kilowatt solar project in that top section, the 11.5 acre section of 159 Kirshheimer Drive, and no one would have cared. It's not only the right of the select board and the planning commission to comment on this. I feel it's a must. If you don't comment, you're sending the wrong message to all the solar companies, the Public Utility Commission, and the residents of Guilford. That you can tell the town whatever they want to hear, but go ahead and do what you want, because Guilford's not going to object. It's because of Peter Thorell's dishonesty that the Public Utility Commission has ordered him to file for this major amendment. The Public Utility Commission decides whether or not the project is in the public good. The town of Guilford can submit comments on how the project fits into our town plan, which is what I'm hoping you'll do. This project would be much better suited for the town and residents if it were placed in that 11.5 acre section of the parcel that has not been in land use. We wouldn't be able to see it, and Will Wonus could still make money. Will and Terry Wonus are the only Guilford residents that are benefiting from this solar project. I'm sure the Public Utility Commission would be very surprised if they didn't receive any comments from the town of Guilford after all of the evidence that they have been provided since the start of this investigation. Basically, Peter Thorell made a decision to ask for forgiveness instead of permission. That's not how anyone should conduct business, and we should not be okay with that. On pages 11 and 12 of his new application, question 17, Peter Thorell's pre-filed testimony misleads the Public Utility Commission into thinking the town of Guilford has no land conservation measures in place. So I'd like to point out a few references from our town plan that I think do apply. Town plan, page 14, for settlements and land use, it is the policy of the town to preserve open space, agricultural and forestry lands, and our natural resources. Town plan, page 15, agriculture and forestry. It is the policy of the town of Guilford to encourage the continued use of land for agricultural and forestry purposes, promote productive and sustainable farming and forestry practices, conserve productive fields and forests as economic resources for future generations. Page 63 talks about agricultural resources again, but this one I thought was very important under energy on page 66. The Planning Commission supports residential and community scale renewable energy installations, but feels strongly that there should be no development in town of utility scale renewable energy projects without consideration by and approval of the Select Board, Planning Commission, and community members. Large scale installations are not consistent with the nature and aspirations of Guilford as reflected throughout this plan. There's also no mention on his application of the distance between the 150 kilowatt project that he put in Will's backyard and the 500 kilowatt project that he put in Will's field. I measured it, it's less than 600 feet between the two. That's almost the same distance that this big project is wide. Peter was telling the town that it would bankrupt him if the CPG were revoked. That shouldn't be any of our concern. The Public Utility Commission is the only one that can revoke his CPG. And if the Public Utility Commission does revoke his CPG, it doesn't mean there can never be a solar project at 159 Kirshheimer Drive. It only means this one can't be there. I'm sure there's a reputable business that would love to install a 500 kilowatt project in the 11.5 acre section of 159 Kirshheimer Drive. This, I think, is very irrelevant, but I'm going to share this anyway because there was some history shared with you about the field that was not true. First off, when Will Wonis purchased that field, it wasn't because someone else was going to buy it and develop it. The person who was going to buy it was actually my father-in-law, David Sargent, and he was going to buy it to keep it the way it was. He never intended to develop it. Will Wonis did sell parcels to the Roots, Sargents, and Al Dacey, and on each deed there were restrictions placed on them as far as what they could do with the property. I also know the person who wanted to buy the field from Will when it was on the market. He had no intention to develop it. He was going to build one house for he and his family, but Will would only sell it with the restrictions of where on the property he could build his house. So Will, of all people, should understand why this placement of this solar array is so upsetting. Will also points out that this 500 kilowatt project produces the most electricity in the state of Vermont. And I'm sure it does, since they installed 600 more panels than they said they would. It's the inverter that dictates how many kilowatts goes onto the grid. It's not the amount of panels. So the more panels you have, the longer you're going to produce the higher amount of kilowatts over an extended period of time. Will also said that by having this lease with Peter Thorell, that it pretty much guarantees he will be able to pay his taxes. And that's not necessarily the case. Just because he'll get paid doesn't mean anyone else does, including the town. It is also important to understand that Will Wonis was offered $10,000 to keep it out of view of one neighbor. That's also not fair to the rest of us, that we're not included in the placement because we didn't offer any money. So these are some of the main reasons why I'm asking you to please share the concerns that we have raised about this project and comment to the Public Utility Commission.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do you want this?
So, yes, I think we have it, I think. Thank you.
Oh.
So, I will say that I have sat at some select board meetings. So the select board has listened to this issue. I've also been at the planning commission meetings, and I've spent some time talking with Michelle, the chair of the planning commission. And we learned recently that if we wish to make a comment, we have to do it by the 20th of August. So the planning commission met last Wednesday, and they're going to meet again this Wednesday to deal with this and to listen to Tammy and the neighbors. I have drafted a response, not to you, but a letter for the select board's consideration, and I ran it by, Peter helped me this afternoon, and then I ran it by Michelle, the initial draft, and then Peter's revised draft. And she said that this draft reflects the sentiments of the planning commission, but they may wish to add one thing to our draft if we decide that this is the way we want to go. And so she's gonna take this letter if we agree to do this and discuss it with the planning commission at their special meeting on Wednesday. So I'd like to read the draft, and then I'd like to have the select board comment on it. One of the things I tried to do in this draft is not make any assumptions about people's intentions, because I think that's not our business, and that is I'm sure that, Gabby, you can help me here with legal terminology, but we can't impugn anybody or come to any conclusions about anything other than the facts.
Right.
So my draft reads, The Guilford Selectboard and the Planning Commission have spent many hours in many meetings over the past several months listening to and studying the issues surrounding the solar system installations by Soveren Solar, now Kirchheimer Drive Community Solar LLC. These installations include the two located at 159 Kirchheimer Drive, 500 kilowatts, and 708 Guilford Center Road, 150 kilowatts. It's our understanding that Soveren filed two separate applications for these locations, but they may well be defined per state statute as one. Despite listing two separate roads as access points for each project, Soveren gained access to and worked on the two nearly adjacent sites via one service road throughout the duration of the projects. Both projects are also serviced by the Green Mountain Power infrastructure installed during the construction of the project at 708 Guilford Center Road. This further reinforces the possibility that Soveren did not view these as separate projects. An application for the 159 Kirchheimer Drive project was submitted 2 weeks prior to the 708 Guilford Center Road project receiving its CPG, Certificate of Public Good. Again, pointing to the possibility that Soveren did not view these as two separate projects. Soveren was determined by the PUC to be in violation of some terms of the permit for the Kirchheimer Drive installation, fined, and required to submit an application for an amended Certificate of Public Good. Several Guilford residents object to the Kirchheimer Drive installation as built for a number of reasons, all on record with the PUC and all explained in thorough detail to both the Planning Commission and the Select Board. 2 residents have appeared before the Select Board to share their view that the installation sites do not hinder agricultural use of the property. These 2 installations, whether or not they were built according to statutory requirement, provide a significant amount of energy, although not to residents of Guilford. The 159 Kirchheimer Drive project was built larger than defined in the initial CPG application. So those are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 summary understandings. The Select Board and the Planning Commission are of the opinion that the Public Utilities Commission should assess whether or not the Soveren installation should be deemed one project or 2 separate projects. We are dismayed that it appears that filings were submitted in a manner that seems to contravene legal requirements in this regard. This action is similar to other deviations from the plans submitted to the PUC by Soveren during installation. In short, we believe that the energy produced by these 2 installations is in the public good, but we request that the PUC assess the projects as built prior to making a final determination. The Select Board and the Planning Commission take very seriously what seems to be an attempt to circumvent regulations and rules. So that is, we can not comment or make judgments, but we can comment but not make judgments. So I don't know how Richard and Gabby and Gordon feel about this.
This is Richard. But we requested the PUC assess the project as built prior to making. What does that mean? I mean, should it be a stronger verb or several words that assess? I mean, assess the project for what purpose?
So the issue is whether this is 1 or 2 projects. Is it wrong from the beginning? And then does it meet the requirements for it, or they meet the requirements for a Certificate of Public Good?
Right, so I think that I would like to see that a little more filled out, but what we mean by assess. And you just laid out the context, and I think that needs context.
Did you not think that that's covered in 2B or 2A?
I'm confused by the whole sort of 1 or 2 projects. I'm not sure where this is coming from because I thought we were just commenting on public good.
But
I mean, I don't understand if we think it wasn't filed properly, and I don't know how. I mean, then we should put something in there that says, if this was filed we hope this needs to be filed properly. I don't really know that we have the information or the experience, the capacity to make a determination. I don't really understand any of this actually, the 1 or 2, because I thought it was about public good.
Can I make a
1 minute, please.
So.
Can you, sorry,
I,
Richard, hold on 1 second. So, yes, we have an opportunity to comment on whether or not this appears to meet the certificate for public good requirements. However, before we before doing that, we feel that the Public Utilities Commission needs to determine whether these 1 or 2 projects are 1 or 2 projects and meet the legal requirements.
that's what I would like to say.
Say that again, Richard?
That's what
I
he'd
said,
like
that's
to-
what I would like to say, what you just said. Whether there are 1 or 2 projects and meet the legal requirements.
I guess how does that? It should meet all the legal requirements without with no comment. I guess how, if at all, would that affect our opinion as to whether it serves the public good or not?
Well, the select board can comment on whatever you
What-
wish.
yeah.
regarding
Oh, of
it.
course we can, but just to say,
So
does that? It seems sort of extraneous to. We're happy to say he should be held to the regular legal standards. He's already been found to deviate from following rules and regulations set forth by this commission, and we don't support. I'm trying to think of the words because I just am looking at
So-
this right now. But of course, anything that's that's inconsistent with what's required legally should be found unacceptable.
So
Or we
you're
should somehow say
feeling the
something.
same confusion that I felt this afternoon, like maybe it does meet public good. Maybe the 650 kilowatts serves the public well. On the other hand, it appears that it was built not according to law.
Well, then we
Legal
need to have
requirements.
the law, and we need to know what we're talking about, because I don't feel comfortable opining on any of that.
So that
I have
was-
not seen any of that, and I don't feel comfortable saying that one way or the other.
That was
So
illustrated in the letter that was in the folder.
So I guess that's my personal
Well,
opinion.
we could, can't we say that we'd like the PUC to assure us that it follows the legal requirements? That's not making a statement about.
No, I think that's all we need to say. I don't think we should get into details about. That's my personal opinion. And I think if we're going to say it's in the public good, we should quote our town plan as to why we figured that out, or why we believe that to be such. Our energy plan, actually, we just approved it, a new energy plan, so just be aware of that.
When did that get approved?
Probably in
Because
June.
there are a lot
In
of
June.
great things
Yeah.
in June, then this
Yeah.
should apply to what you have right now, and there are a lot of references.
Exactly, so
in
I just
it.
want to make you aware of that, so that you're aware of the applicable town plan for energy.
Yeah.
And I wanted to say, Tammy, that I thought that I really hope you're joining the newly formed energy committee or commission, whatever they are, because that was a really thorough, clear, well-researched statement, and I really appreciate the time and the thought that you put into it, because the energy is a complex issue, and it was very impressive. So I hope you are inspired to join the committee.
We've learned a lot over the last couple of years.
And share your knowledge. And I really thank you for what you did say. And I just have one more question, because you did quote the agricultural, page 15, the policies relating to agriculture. And I'm just looking at our land use map and trying to figure out whether it's actually an agricultural resource or not. It looks to be
Page
high density
86
mixed
in the town
use.
plan.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at.
Oh,
I
okay.
can clarify it because I did the current use map for the property. So that the field that the solar project is in current use and has been in current use. It's a hay field used by Franklin's. There's another 11.5 acre parcel, portion of the same parcel that's at the top of the hill, which Tammy's referring to, that is not in current use.
Right, I'm looking at 86, our land use.
Right.
So it's the towns, it's not, I know what you're saying with current use. And
Well, if it's a hay field, it's kind of,
yeah, unfortunately, we're looking at the town plan now, and I'm trying to figure out where that property is, because it looks like it might be high density mixed use. Not that that takes away from the fact that it could be an agricultural.
When I
Use.
think I zoomed in on it actually.
I know, I'm
blind. That's what I had to do because it's very hard to read, and it is labeled as land use parcel. I should have zoomed in and taken a,
But, yeah, I mean, I think that we should have an explanation of that, our goals and visions, and then say why we believe it to be agricultural and why it is or is not consistent with our policies, and the same thing with energy in our letter.
absolutely, that's what I was hoping for.
I mean, so here, I mean, I think what we're saying though, I mean, I know we're gonna disagree with that, and I respect your opinion, is that even though it is agricultural land, that it could be returned to agricultural land, and so it's consistent with our policies.
And also, they've said, is Al Franklin, didn't he say that he's been farming it, or he could if he wanted to, he just didn't?
Al Hayes around the outskirts of the project.
Yeah.
He used to mow the entire field. That's why it was all in land use since 2002. But my point was if this project hadn't already been built and we had all come to the meeting and said to Peter Thurell, hey, there's actually an 11.5 acre section that you could easily fit this project on. That would be up for discussion. I think the town would be on board with asking him, you know, why couldn't we put it up there? Why does it have to go right in the middle of this big, beautiful field where there's gonna be a lot of people having to look at it that don't wanna look at it, takes away from the agricultural. And we can't have that discussion because everyone's looking at it like, well, it's already there. So now we have to decide. And that's the part, this major amendment was supposed to be looked at, like you have to try to pretend it's not there. And that's what's a difficult thing. I mean, I understand it's not easy. I'm just, if it weren't in place and we were talking about it beforehand, I think this conversation would be a legit conversation.
Yeah.
You know, why would we have to put it here? You'd have to have a few more poles installed. Look at how many poles Dan Ingold had put in. Look at the road he had Mike Kachuk built for him. He invested in the project.
Sorry.
Yeah. I'm Al Dacey, I live at 112 Kirshheimer. And my main concern right from the beginning, the project itself doesn't have a big impact on me because it is in the lower part of the field and I don't really see it from my place. But my main objection all along has been, as a direct abutter, I was never notified that this project was happening. I was never notified until, I've only been notified by certified mail in the last 6 months after the project was built and all this stuff had come back in. So right from the start, I never had any chance to comment on anything that was going on there, positive or negative. And I don't, you know, if I had known about it before it was going to happen, I have no idea how I would have felt because I would have had to see what he was proposing. But I mean, that's a basic start to any project. You have to notify your budding landowners. And if he didn't notify me as the next door neighbor, and it was supposed to access through 159 Kirshheimer, which is basically my driveway, it's a private road. If he'd done everything as the way he's supposed to, I should have been notified. I should have had comment. You know, if he made changes to it, I should have been made aware of the changes that were made before they were made. And that's my biggest concern. He just didn't follow the rules right from the start.
So I'm trying to say in this letter that that is something that the Public Utility Commission needs to determine and act on, not the select board. I mean, the select board and the planning commission and you all can bring it to the attention of the Public Utilities Commission, but it's not our place to judge. It is to say, pay attention to these facts.
Absolutely.
And determine whether or not this application qualifies for a certificate of public good, even before we get to, I mean, what I've said in here is that all this energy is useful, but that's not the real issue, I think, before us.
But I mean, I think the problem is that it is. I mean, and the fact that he didn't notify you, I think, you know, he was a developer, and, you know, and he did not comply with the rules and regulations
All along.
without a doubt, and the PUC agrees with that, right? I mean, I think everybody agrees with that, probably except for him.
Right, but why can't this town
that's-
support that argument?
But what are we going to do about it? I
I'm not saying we'll do
problem.
anything, but from my perspective, and to me, that's the nuts and bolts of this. I have no understanding outside of everything I've heard from both, everyone involved in this, but isn't it our job to support, the town in raising an awareness that possibly something happened here that wasn't done correctly? I mean, it's not that we can act on it necessarily.
We can comment.
But we can
comment on anything.
And that's what I think is missing from this letter as well, that that the developer has obfuscated and
So I didn't want to
circumvented
come out and say that directly.
it's been decided by the PUC. And I think that we can put it
So
softer
that's
and
in
say
violation
that,
of some terms of the permit.
and say that this, I think it's fair to say that the fact that it's unusual to be going for an amendment for a project that's already built and has put the town in an unfair position, both for its citizens and the town leadership.
Absolutely.
And that's the perfect way, Gabby, to phrase it. I think that is in a nutshell what at least what I would like to see convey from the select board.
And that we don't condone this behavior,
Exactly.
nor should the PUC.
Exactly.
Can I say one quick thing before I forget?
Well,
The 500 kilowatt.
Oh,
Richard, hold on one
Richard,
second.
yeah, let Richard speak, please.
I don't know if I agree with that because it's evidentiary. I mean, you have to have evidence to make claims like that, and we don't have hard evidence that any of the wrong that he did. I don't think the hard evidence of that, and I believe it, but I don't think that we can claim that we have evidence that he did wrong. So I would say that the approach to take is that there may be, that the people who were involved at Kirchheimer Drive and the select board would like this to be looked into. I don't think that we can claim anything about what he did was right or wrong.
I
We
think
don't have
that
the evidence.
I think the facts, I think he agreed with me actually as to those facts, and I think it's very clear that it's unusual to be having a discussion about an amendment or a project after it's being built for permitting purposes.
Yeah, well, I think that we could say.
Okay, then we're on the same page, I think, Richard.
Say that again, Gabby.
It's on tape.
Yes.
I know, but I know I've already written down 7:25 p.m., but.
I think that everybody agrees as to the facts that it's that having a discussion about public good and a permitting decision after a project's been built is unusual. And I mean, frankly, disrespectful. Or shows a certain amount of disrespect for the process. So, I mean, Tammy has been biting her tongue.
I forget things so quickly, that's why I apologize.
Tammy.
What I wanted to say was the case that all the hard evidence that Richard is looking for is number 8843. And all the evidence is in there. It takes a while to go through it. I can tell you what exhibit numbers you need if you choose to look for the hard evidence.
And I presented the conclusions to the select board.
And I actually think that the gentleman from Soveren agreed with me he agreed as to the facts of the chronology of the events.
Yeah.
Which is all really we need.
Right. But what I was going to say is case number 8843 is specifically about the 500 kilowatt project. In going through all the process for that over the last almost 2 years, that's when I found out the 150 kilowatt project, which is in Will Wonus's backyard, is a different CPG. He did that one first. That's another one that none of the abutting landowners were notified, and you guys do have that on file. So if you pull the CPG for that one, I believe it's 6222 is the number of that CPG. It'll say right in his application, these are the people I mailed this application to. These are all the abutting landowners I notified. None of them are abutting landowners. They're all down on Route 5 and in other places of town. They didn't even know they were supposed to be notified. So,
but I think we can add that given his lack of conformity with requirements in the past that we asked the PUC to ensure that he has a completed application in accordance with all of the necessary legal requirements, as well as notified all of the appropriate abutters.
Yes, that's the way to do it.
They have changed the rules now so that that can't happen anymore. He has to mail everything certified mail. So, but even if he's mailing it certified mail to someone who's not in a butter, that really doesn't do any good, so.
And I think the issue here is no longer whether people were notified, but where we are today.
Absolutely,
You know, I
yeah,
mean, everybody's
absolutely.
really keenly aware of this.
Yes.
Where people are right now. So, so there is let me just check for a minute. There's a planning commission meeting at 7:30, 7 o'clock. On the 15th. If people, which is Wednesday, it's at the museum. If the select board is not happy with this draft, I would ask somebody else to please come up with a draft, and maybe we could call a special meeting to meet together with the planning commission to approve it or not on the 20th. I don't know how else to proceed if people are not happy. If anybody wants to take another crack at this, thank you. I'd really appreciate it.
It's due the 20th.
Correct.
I'm sorry, the meeting is August 15th.
The
The planning commission meeting is August 15th.
Right.
We have, if we are not going to approve a letter along this lines, this draft, we need to redraft it, discuss it with the planning commission, and have a special meeting to vote on whether or not we're the next version of a draft.
Couldn't we, as a select board, offer an opinion on that 16th or 17th via email? You know, vote on it over email.
I'd like to know first
I'm
of
out
all.
of town next week, so if
Yeah.
you're gonna have a special
Well,
meeting,
then
I'll
this has to
do
be
it by
submitted by
conference.
next Monday.
Right. But, so,
Maybe, it looks like Sheila took notes, so
Yeah,
maybe she
I-
can circulate it to the select board and they can comment to her directly, so we're not making a decision, and then have a joint meeting, since it's a joint letter, a special meeting.
It actually wasn't intended to be a joint letter, it was the
that's
select board.
confusing.
No, it says
Okay.
the town of the select board comment, and then I'm talking about the select board and the planning commission spent all of this time, but the select board
We should just make it clear that that it comes from the select board then, because I definitely thought it was a joint meeting.
yeah,
a
I
letter.
will do, I mean, I didn't put a
It could be.
signature line here.
And I don't, and that's the other thing, is I don't think it's a problem to do a joint letter. And it might save people time, I don't know.
I don't feel, I think that both Richard and you have vastly different ideas about how this draft should read. And so I'm happy to have done the initial groundwork, but I'd like somebody else to contribute to the final draft for the select board and the planning commission to consider.
So is it a joint letter or is it a select board letter?
So,
I guess that's where I'm
The,
getting confused.
the planning commission wants to know what the select board is doing. They will take that into consideration on Wednesday evening, and they will either agree with this letter or add to this letter or draft their own. But they want to know what the select board is doing. They are, according to Michelle, this draft is in line with their thinking and their discussions to date and captures everything. But there seems to be some other things that we could add that you all would like or change. I have no pride of authorship here. I'm just trying to put something out there for people to respond to and edit. But I don't know that I can, unless we get a video tomorrow, do this before the meeting on Wednesday. And incorporate and revise it. So if somebody else wants to take this, please feel free. If not, I don't know how to
alternatively, I
proceed.
guess you could orally just tell Michelle what our position is, and we could have a week to work on a draft, which sounds a little bit more.
We don't have a week. The town office is closed Tuesday, we're voting Wednesday, Thursday, and it's the 20th is next Monday.
Cathi, would you be willing to draft a couple of sentences about what you, representing what you said?
Yeah, let me look at my schedule though, Richard, because I have a bunch of meetings this week, so.
And just for reference, per state statute, it doesn't have, the select board and the planning commission can each submit their own letter.
And
You can do it jointly if you wish, but you can legally submit two separate ones.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I have
Let's
I work
assume,
Wednesday night, I have a meeting Thursday night, and it needs to go presumably out in the, I mean, how are we gonna deliver this? Can
and
this
how are we
be
going to agree
electronically?
that that is the final draft? That is another question.
We can upload it onto the E EPUC site.
That's technical, we have to do Monday. How does the select board convene electronically or in person between now and Monday morning so that we can get this done?
So can I ask, how is this going? Is this electronically, so we can do it on Monday via email?
Well, it's not via email, it gets uploaded to the E EPUC website.
Okay, so that gives us some time. Because I don't think it's reasonable to get a draft turned around on Wednesday, at least for me. And maybe the thing to do is for the select board to give me and Richard authority to draft and finalize something for Sheila to sign on Monday morning.
I'm happy to do that, to have that, because I feel like with the video and with these notes and with the draft and with the conversations, we're all pretty clear about where we stand. It's just a matter of how we word it.
So Richard, do you have time over the weekend if I got you something over the weekend?
Yeah, that would be good.
Okay, let's do that.
So you're
Thank
gonna
you.
have a motion to authorize them to write on behalf of the select board?
So I'll make a motion that Gabby and Richard have the authority to finalize the letter that is gonna go on Monday.
Second, Gabby? And the only thing I would like to say is we need to advise the planning commission. I will try to do that in a separate conversation. On
Do you go to their
Wednesday.
meetings?
I'm out of town on Wednesday, so
okay.
I'm not gonna be at their meeting, but I'll see if I can talk to Michelle tomorrow or Wednesday while driving. Okay, so let's take a vote. All in favor? Richard?
Aye.
Gabby?
Aye.
Gordon?
Aye.
Sheila? Aye. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
everybody. You
Jamie
guys have
in
done an
particular,
amazing
thank you
amount
for
of
raising
work.
the-
And been really patient
And
and
it's
very
been very
thorough.
confusing, and I apologize, but it's a lot to take in.
No, we
It's a
appreciate it.
confusing
you.
process, unfortunately.
We had a conversation at the last meeting about Tyler Higley's proposal for spring and fall mowing cleanup, and honest to God, I forgot what the issue was.
So,
Go ahead.
when you guys approved the contract with Tyler at the last meeting in July, you approved him to do mowing only for the town office and for the library, and it has, because of the construction that's currently going on, there will be no mowing needed for the town office right now. So you all had questions regarding what spring and fall cleanup consisted of for those costs. And as I shared with the select board via email after that meeting, Tyler defines spring cleanup as repair of winter plowing damage to the grassy areas, dethatching the grass and reseeding as needed. Fall cleanup is defined as final trimming, both with mower and by hand, cleaning up branches and twigs, mulching and removing leaves. So that's what it is his services for those two things.
So the budget for the fiscal year 2019 budget for grounds maintenance is $3,700. If we used Tyler's figure of $300 each for the town office and the library, so $600 total for spring and fall cleanup, and then we had his general upkeep for the library of $1,210, which the library is going to pay half of, right? So that was only $605 this year. That would get us to $1,205. And then we figured another $900 for fiscal year 2019 spring cleanup, which gets us to $2,100 approximately of our $3,700 budget for this year, this fiscal year. So I think we're covered, but but there are some issues about going forward, and there are some issues about the playscape, which we cannot discuss tonight because we don't have enough data for that. So what did we approve in our amendment in our motion last
You
time
approved for Tyler
to
to
do the mowing?
mowing only of the town office and the library for
Okay.
fiscal year 19.
Right. And my recommendation in looking at these figures, that we would further approve his bid for a spring and fall cleanup for the library and the town office for an amount not to exceed that amount that he bid. Because I think he might be able to do it for less, and I think that it would be good if he would let us know if he could do it for less,
And one thing I will
particularly in the town office.
speak to is, in my time there, he has, well, he had, a set fee that he would charge. He has only ever billed us what he does. work
And
for.
that's the point, and I think that's the net, is that we know he will be that
So
type of.
it doesn't say that in the
So-
contract.
No, it doesn't.
So you
It's
have
a
to
bid
write a
contract.
contract,
Yes, because I'm waiting on this.
because you're waiting for this.
But we
So,
trust
but I think that contract should say, for an
to
amount
exceed.
not to exceed.
Yep.
And that, okay, so do I hear a motion?
So moved.
him. Second.
Did you get all that? You will. Richard?
Could you just say the motion, please?
So the motion is that we accept Tyler Higley's proposal for spring and fall cleanup, $300 for the
I'll put in the
town
numbers later.
office and $300 for the library, in the, not to exceed $600 total.
Aye.
Gabby?
Aye.
Gordon?
Aye.
Aye.
And thank Tyler for his
Yeah,
patience while we work through this.
And the issue of playscape mowing, we are tabling
Yes, correct.
because we do not have the numbers. What I had asked Peter to do was to come up with numbers, where we would come up with the budget for doing the playscape mowing for fiscal year 2019, because that, and what the source of funds, what the source of funds is, because we have not budgeted for it. And I will remind people that in our fiscal year 2020 budgeting process, we have to figure a lot more for mowing. So,
Now that we know volunteers can't participate
Right, well-
anymore to take care of our town.
Well, I'll also say, I mean, the town agreed to accept the playscape, at town meeting,
That's
whatever it
correct.
was.
Without the-
With
that's
the understanding that it would be cared for by volunteers, and that was made very, very, very clear.
It was.
So I guess my only thought is we don't have to mow it. We can also just have it, let it be land.
so,
I mean,
but
I
That's
just
another
look at
option,
all
I think,
the
for the
options.
discussion.
Yeah.
And while I agree with you, at that time, we thought volunteers could actually mow the
Oh, I
playscape.
agree,
And since that's not a possibility,
So
I think
that
it's
has to be-
changed the whole scope of.
yeah, that has to be tabled
Yeah,
Yep.
for next week,
for discussion
for the
at
next
some
meeting,
point.
and it was a select board vote, not a town meeting vote
Oh.
in 2015.
I would look at the town meeting.
From what I have not looked at the town meeting minutes for 2015, but I did look at select board meeting
I
minutes.
know we
and
talked about
There
it,
was a decision by the select board at that time.
Yeah,
to not any additional
Yeah.
cost.
That's correct.
And
Yeah.
I thought it came up at town meeting, in fact, as well, so I would look at
I
the
was
town.
discussed at town meeting,
Yeah,
I'm quite sure,
yeah.
but
I can look at the town meeting notes from 2015.
I would.
Good.
so, last item before warrants is town office renovation and update and budget to date.
So, just very briefly, so Gordon joined us at a meeting last week. It's our bi-weekly meeting with GPI and Greenberg, just reviewing where things are at. And overall, things are progressing fine. The siding, as of today, the siding is 99% complete, which means also that all of the exterior insulation is complete. All of the interior insulation in the attics has been completed as well. The mini split units have all been installed and are functioning as of this morning.
Yay,
yeah.
we needed them.
So that was very nice.
Whole different world.
Yep, the new section as well as the other alterations have all been sheetrocked, and The taper has been there yesterday, or sorry, not yesterday, last Thursday and Friday, as well as today, doing that. So they hope to be moving on to sanding and painting later on this week. Let's see, flooring. The reason that the office is closed on Wednesday and Thursday of this week is for flooring to be installed. So they are working towards that. So about 75% of the flooring will be installed this week, and the remainder will be installed next week. Am I missing anything, Gordon, from that conversation?
I don't think so.
And you put those notes in the file, if I remember correctly.
I have not done that
Oh,
yet.
No,
I
no,
do
it's
have
not
the
The others are in there.
The others are in there, but not the ones from last week. I haven't had time to do. So the other thing that came up is that on the two entrances to the town office, there had on the overhang that sits over the entryway.
This
there had-
overhang hasn't changed. That's exactly what the old one and the new one look like. The
what-
overhang part, right?
Yeah, the overhang part. However, there had been
Yes.
on the north and south side of each one, there had been these plywood walls that had just been painted, as well as a piece of inexpensive plexiglass, which had been starting to change color and whatnot. And in the process of needing to re-side and re-insulate the exterior of the building, those were removed. And the current plans did not stipulate whether or not those were to be returned. And so one thing for the select board to decide, they would like decided upon, is whether or not to replace those plywood sides and or replace the plexiglass, or put in tempered glass in place of plexiglass. I was supposed to have received a quote from GPI for the cost of doing that in either plexiglass or glass. Unfortunately, I did not receive that from them today, as of arriving before the meeting. However, based on discussions that were had by everyone present at that meeting, which was two of the architects and Joe and Mark, the on-site supervisor, as well as Ellie and myself, and Penny popped in a couple times. The overall opinion was that people liked how it looked without those sides. It felt more welcoming and inviting. And so what I have handed out to the select board, and I had emailed previously to Richard, because I received this afternoon, is a proposal by Greenberg and how to make that look nice without putting up those sides again, based off of what the current
And all he's really doing is changing the column, the
That's-
basis
yep.
of the columns. So it's not a major architectural,
Nope.
structural issue. It's simply a cosmetic appearance as you face the building.
Yep.
How is he changing them?
Well, you can see on the front page, they're putting a
They're
1 inch
just-
trim with 1 inch
Oh,
blocking.
That's
okay,
it.
got it.
It's
Got
a
it,
very,
Yeah.
and in talking to, well, did you talk to your cohorts?
We spoke with everyone except for Lisa, because
Okay.
she's on vacation with her
Okay.
kids. Everyone else agrees to leave them off. They like to look better.
Right.
I do too.
Much better.
Yeah.
So I'm a
Okay,
proponent.
let's leave them off.
Okay, is that a motion?
I'm still unclear on what's being left off and what's.
Do you-
So what did the architectural plans originally call for? Like, what did we buy?
There was, nothing was specified.
Nothing was specified.
And that was because GPI found in taking them off to put, well, they weren't initially going to take them off, but to do a complete seal on the new siding and
Right.
insulation, they needed to remove those cheap plywood walls so they could do a complete job all the way around the entire building. So they removed it, and they were going to, they were intending on
back.
putting it back.
Just putting back.
But when they went to look at the plans as to what it was specified to replace it with, there was no specification there. So they were at the meeting last week, they asked all of us, I
Right.
mean, particularly the select board, whether or not you wanted it replaced, and Gordon made the point he liked it without, and asked all of us as employees what our opinions were, and the consensus was we liked it without.
And then we would discuss it at the select board meeting. So these walls will no longer be there.
So this it's
What
just
you
trim.
just crossed out.
just
It's just trim.
Yeah.
So
It's not,
So
the
we're not
backside,
gonna
this is already here. This is already
The
here.
posts are already
He's just
there.
gonna change the base of this to look more finished.
So here's on the back
And these
side.
walls are gone. This
Yeah.
used to be just that wooden, I thought those alcoves, they collected spiders, snow, because it didn't come all the way up. It was just,
So here's the profile view of it. So
yeah,
there had
that's easier
been
to see.
there had been a wall across here at the same height of where the
Yeah.
Okay.
proposed trim is.
Right.
And so they want to know, since it was, you know,
Open.
So they were gonna put back what was there, but seeing it open, it was so much better.
So Richard has moved that we leave it open.
And I will second
That's
that.
right.
Is that affect our cost in any way? Like when you said you were gonna get a proposed change order? Is that?
no, there's not supposed to be. This is not a change order.
Okay, so this is.
There's no
Okay.
change order because this was something that GPI did.
And they were gonna put back what was there anyway, and.
So they were simply asking our opinions since it
Should-
was open.
And Chip was kind enough, I think, to just say, well, I'll just work up something so the select board can make an opinion
Okay.
decision based on something other
That's
than
correct.
a discussion.
Okay.
So Chip did this very nicely for us. And I just want to say GPI has been amazing through this whole process with, you know, the workmanship that's gone into this, the thought process of things that, you know, I think we ought to do this because this will be better for the long run for the town of Guilford. I mean, they have been phenomenal. And everything I've heard from Peter at all the meetings I have attended, you know, they've really done an outstanding job. So I just want that to be on the record as well as Chip and
Let's
Brendan.
vote on the motion.
All
Well,
in
you
favor?
made the motion and
Well,
and
I
I
need a second.
seconded it. I
Okay,
seconded
Gordon
it.
seconded.
All in favor? Richard?
Aye.
Gabby?
Aye.
Aye.
Gordon, aye. Sheila, aye. Thank you. Warrants? Who's got the warrants? Gabby, you got the
I'll
warrants
make motion to
tonight.
pay the following payroll and warrants. Payroll for week ending July 29th, 2018 in the amount of $6,482.50. Payroll for the week ending August 5th, 2018 in the amount of $5,539.16. Payroll for the week ending August 12th, 2018 in the amount of $6,218.24. Expense warrant 1803 in the amount of $121,241.99. And expense warrant CC03 in the amount of $327.50 for a grand total of $139,809.39, with the majority of the expense warrant being for town office renovations. But I would like to just say, I think that the one invoice relating to septic should be pulled out of wherever, it should be kept with the town office project, rather than pulled out as unspecified capital, just to keep the
Okay.
project together.
And I agree.
Okay.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Yes, I
Gordon,
second.
second. Richard? All in favor? Richard?
Aye.
Gabby?
Aye.
Gordon?
Aye.
Sheila, aye. Thank you. Are there communications?
There are a couple, but if we can back up for 2 seconds, we didn't finish the conversation about the town office updates.
Oh.
Sheila had asked me
So sorry.
Sheila had asked me, and I actually have printouts for everyone, pardon the chicken scratch on them, as far as what has been spent to date. So this is both from last fiscal year for what was spent as well as what has been spent. So the total thus far on both architectural and construction services is $151,465.52.
So do we have no budget? Is that,
Well,
it's in the budget line.
it's coming out of the
Do we have a budget
reserve
for
fund,
this
so
project?
we have a
There's-
budget, but we
yeah, there's
didn't.
the
Can we put the
GFP.
budget in there though?
Yep, I'll add the budget
That would,
in.
I mean, it's just helpful to see.
Yep.
I mean, you could see it in the warrants when they do their
Yep.
request for payment, but
Thank you for doing this.
Yes, that's very helpful.
this is really helpful if we can
Thank
do a
you.
running.
Yep. Okay, on to communications. Once again, we had not yet received our monthly activity reports from the state police, so I reached out and they kindly sent them along for May, June, and July. May was relatively quiet, only 2 tickets were issued, although they were quite spendy tickets. There were 4 that were issued in June, and there were 6 that were issued in July.
So, Where were they? Can you just,
They do not state where they were. They tell what type of tickets were written. In May, one was a speeding ticket, and the second was a driver's license civil ticket. In June, one was a speeding ticket, and the remaining 5 were miscellaneous traffic violations. And in July, one was a speeding ticket, and the other 2 were miscellaneous traffic violations.
so do we have, but they've been collecting data on Guilford Center Road.
Which I
Guilford-
requested, and they finally removed the speed cart last week, and they are currently processing the data, and will send it to us. It's probably gonna be 4 weeks before we get it from what the email said.
And there are 5 of these signed. Okay. And I just want to remind the board that we have talked about a studying traffic safety in Guilford Center and Algiers Village, and the issue of converting drives to roads, and there was another one. 3 topics, I cannot remember. I can never remember the
I
3
have them
topics.
written down in my office.
Good, just so we don't lose sight of
Yep.
the fact that we're supposed to be working on those things.
Yep.
Okay.
We also received the annual report from BDCC and for Sevens, and they sent a letter along, which I'm not going to read because it's rather long, but thanking the town for the support that was given to them this year as well. And they just share some details about the work that they are doing because of the funding that the town has provided to them. So there's 2 copies of the annual report if anyone would like to see one. We got a flyer from VLCT regarding a municipal budgeting workshop, which has been completely redesigned over the past couple of years, and so it's going to be brand new this year, which I've spoken with Sheila about, and I'll be attending since there's a couple of workshops that are new, and then Veranda will be joining me, and I think Richard is working on his schedule to see if he's free. And then last but not least, the Guilford Fire Department Auxiliary wanted to notify the select board that they're holding their annual boot drop on September the 3rd from 7:30 to 2:30, and notifying you that they will follow safety procedures, and wanted to thank you for letting them do that.
Great.
And that's all I have.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Richard seconded first. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Richard?
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
We are adjourning the meeting at 7:57.
Yep, that's what I have.
Thank you, everybody.
Great,
Thank
thank
you,
you.
Richard.
Thanks for being here.